fourth in, Gary. What's that about?
You what?
You're fourth in.
Fourth what?
You're fourth in. You're usually like first in, aren't you?
Well, they're in the rush, aren't they? They're rushing.
I was clean.
Very good. Yeah, she was good.
She was the best Rooney we've had on. I've been doing Colleen's collagen and stuff. Do I look better? I've been doing.
How do I get my money back?
You should have some.
Oh, the Bob Dylan movie. You don't just look up the Bob Dylan movie's good.
Watch it.
Oh.
Has it just come out?
Yeah. Well,
Who plays him? I see him.
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
Brilliant actor.
And you know what it was on about?
Yes, Lawrence. Here we go.
Do you tea? This is our. Do you want normal tea or coffee? Are we?
Coffee if I can.
Right.
God, you make Roy look tiny.
It's a bit
How tall are you?
Let's sit closer to him.
What, you 6'6"?
4.
Oh, yeah.
I've shrunk a little bit, to be honest. Rio Ferdinand came and shook my hand. I said, well done, mate.
Why would he do that?
Well, I can't believe you let him do that. It's about winning, okay? And if you're not winning at least 75% of the time, then we're all in the wrong job. They went to work with the Denver Broncos and he came back and he said, do you know what, I think we need a defence coach, I think we need a kicking coach, we need to break down all these skills. He also came back and said, I'm underpaid as a coach. Half the QPR players are in the physio room like that. Simon Shaw comes in, he's got half his eye hanging out and the teeth out his face, gets stitched up and he's back out training again in 5 minutes.
He said, you should be like the rugby players, right? He said that to me. And he mentioned Martin Johnson. But a week earlier, Martin Johnson had been sent off for breaking somebody's ribs. Yeah. And he was saying, you should be more like him.
You'd have gone very well in the rugby team, you'd have been fine, mate.
You'll remember this. We were in Cardiff. Were you still at United when we played in a final at Cardiff? And the Lions were there.
2005. I said to Roy, I said, you could have been a little bit less brutal. I knew we were going to lose, right? Because I've looked round and gone, we haven't got the cavalry here and we're playing a very good New Zealand side. So I saw him chatting to a few of the boys because they all want to meet.
But it was just casual. It wasn't like,
And I'm just thinking, just be nice to them, don't say. And one of them asked a question. He said, yeah, you're going to get beat 3-0. Yeah. This was before we'd even left to fly to New Zealand.
Yeah, but I followed the
I'm thinking, he's right.
I wasn't Einstein.
Could have said something different. It must have been you were playing a cup final, weren't you?
We were on the coach and they were all walking in into the sort of training bit.
The Vale?
Yeah, the Vale, yeah.
Did you win that cup final?
No,
it was bad.
Was it Arsenal? Was that the Arsenal
copies
one?
on pens.
There you go.
So you told them they were going to get beat 3-0?
Yeah, but
brilliant. Do you know what? He was
score?
right. Actually, thankfully, I'd already been on 2 or 3 Lions tours, so and we'd won, and I'd had my moments. But I broke my ankle in the first game, so I was
in the New Zealand.
New Zealand, yeah, in a place called Rotorua. I went over to make a tackle, got my studs caught in the ground, broke my ankle, and I got stretchered off. And as I'm being stretchered off, I don't know why, but I took my shirt off because I know it meant quite a lot to this fellow I was playing against. So I said, leave it on the peg of the guys. So I get put in an ambulance, taken to hospital. No one's at hospital. You're in New Zealand, they're all at the game. Right, they've left an 18-year-old kid there. And he said, mate, I've just seen it on the telly. He said, I reckon you fractured, dislocated your ankle. So I'm lying on the slab. I went, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Well, it's facing 3 o'clock. And he's looked at me, and I'm with Gary O'Driscoll, the doctor, who I think is in football now, great guy, he was at Man United. He said, can I have your kit? And he wanted all my kit. I said, listen, I'll do you a deal. Go and get me some morphine, you can have all the kit you want. And afterwards, the surgeon came back, stinking of alcohol from the game, and he grabbed my ankle, he said, I'm going to operate on you in the morning. And I said to Gary, there's no way this bloke's operating on me. I said, go and find me whoever operates on Jonah Lomu. So literally the next day, I had an operation, wake up, and the surgeon comes in, and he says, good news and bad news. I said, what's the good news? He said, well, you've got a nice piece of kiwi metal in your leg, 6 screws. He said, you'll be back playing in about 4 months. He said, the bad news is you've got to stay in New Zealand for 6 weeks. I can't let you fly home. I said, that's not bad news, that's catastrophic. So the Lions left the next day and went off to Christchurch, and they went, there's your boarding pass, and I was left on my own.
For 6 weeks?
On crutches, yeah.
And you took what own device? Obviously your hotel room and that, but to your own devices?
Yeah, on crutches. And I thought, there was a Scottish player playing who got left behind as well, because he had to fly home the next day, he was Simon Taylor. We didn't really like each other, to be honest, because we both played number 8 and he's Scottish, so...
Is it hard for people to get together for the Lions? I know people say, obviously it's the dream for players, But you're got in the dressing room with some Irish. Is it hard, or do you
Well,
create something?
I mean,
obviously,
there's 600 years of history, Roy. They hate the English, don't they? Really?
So for you then to go into battle with these guys.
Well, I think so. And the start is, and don't forget, you're playing against one of the best teams in the world normally. Normally over there, so it's all away, and you only got a week together, and you got to come together very quickly. So it'd be like, Arsenal, Man United, Chelsea, and put all in a hotel, and there's all these misconceived ideas about each other and everything. But once you get together,
is that right? Because I've seen all the documentaries where you kind of living play music together. And obviously, you have a few beers, wherever it might be, but actually come together so quickly.
Well, you've got to put all your intellectual property as a player and as a man on the table and share it with the people that you've.
True
and if you do that, then you've got a chance of being successful.
But that's easy to say it, isn't it?
Yeah. But also, there's to be picked for the Lions is special, right? Because it only happens every 4 years, and it's the best of the best. It's like the SAS, isn't it?
Right.
So if you get picked, it's good. But there's been so many Lions tours, there ain't been that many that won. So there's being a Lion, and then there's being a winning Lion. Right. And I think if you can go over there, we went over to South Africa and we beat the world champions, and we had an amazing time. And it started off the Fly on the Wall documentary, Living with the Lions. It was probably the first of many. We didn't even know they were there, thank God. Right. I mean, if we'd have lost the series 2-1, it would have been a very different documentary, I'm sure. Yeah. But it was an amazing experience. And probably of all the things I've achieved in rugby, I remember that 9 weeks.
Is that 9 weeks? Better than anything you've done at club and international?
Without shadow.
Even the
How
World
many
Cup?
of them did you do?
3. So 1997, because the game had only been professional for 2 years. So we were the last amateur first professional tour. And there were some pretty special people on that trip. Then 2001 and then 2005, so I did 3 of them. But
so was the first one ahead of sports science a little bit?
Yeah.
You have to have a few beers a bit
Absolutely.
more. Was that why it was more enjoyable, you think, instead of...
Yeah, well, I think you just got you go in there with no expectations. And Ian McGeechan was the coach, we had Jim Telfer. I mean, some of those speeches are legendary. Yeah. And playing South Africa, I mean, in rugby, the 2 biggest challenges are going to New Zealand and winning, and going to South Africa and winning. We can all win at home, with all due respect. When you're in the hostile territory and you've got to win, and they are big boys.
Sorry, but you don't put Australia in that group, no?
Not anymore, no.
Right.
They used to be.
Right.
Very much so. But I still think those 2 teams are iconic. So if you can go over there and win, when we turned up in '97, only 2 teams had ever won in South Africa. I mean, apartheid had a lot to do with that because not many teams went there. But the 74 Lions, Willie John McBride, and the 96 All Blacks. So only 2 teams had ever won a Test series in South Africa. So,
and what's the reason why England, Scotland, Ireland, why they use those against one country? Is it because they're bigger countries?
I don't know. It's a concept, isn't it? It's something that was started in 18, whenever it was, and it's been going every 4 years. But if you think about it, everything is set up to fail. You've got 40 nations that come together that don't really like each other. And you've got 1 week to prepare. You're flying to the other side of the world to play against one of the best teams in the world. Yeah. Up until a few years ago with their referees as well. You go down the first scrum, our ball, the referee said to us, But I think it's just such a great challenge. You've got to put everything out there. And some of the experience and the fans that travel, it's much more like football,
See, I would have loved that at the Olympics. If they had that. They had it the 1 year, didn't they? In 2012.
I was at that one because it was when Micah Richards and everyone was playing for
Giggsy
the lads. Yeah.
Yes.
But I think when you say about coming together from different nations, as soon as you put on that shirt, you're a team, aren't you?
I suppose you have to do it at club level as well. You've rivalry in club level, then you have to go and play for Ireland or England or Scotland. You have to get your head around that, I suppose, that you're a team, I suppose.
Yeah.
Different dynamic.
But I mean, you actually learn, I think, as a rugby player, you learn so much as well because you're with the best players in the whole of the British Isles.
You're learning off them.
And you're learning from them and you're hopefully teaching them a few things. And the standards, when you walk out on the training field, you think, you just don't want to let anyone down. And it's just incredible. The standard's incredible.
Especially from the Irish lads, obviously, you look at them the most.
Absolutely.
This episode of Stick to Football is brought to you by Sky Bet. This episode of Stick to Football is brought to you by Huel. I finished playing football and was finding a new way of living, a new way of sort of being in the office where you're not training, you're basically sort of snacking, picking things up, not eating properly, not eating at the right times, and started to basically sort of do things very differently. Not training, obviously, is the biggest thing because you're training for a couple of hours a day as a footballer, but then not eating the right things, and before you know it, you're on a sort of a... And then I just thought, right, I'm going for it. So now I train 6 o'clock, 4 or 5 times a week. I eat breakfast properly, eat lunch properly, but then I will in mid-afternoon, or if I don't get a lunch, because the odd time, say for instance, even like today, to be fair, I'm travelling now somewhere, we've run over till 1:30, it'll be a day where I will basically go for one of these. And then sometimes if I'm not eating till later at night, like 7:30, 8, let's say I'm going to a dinner of some kind, I'll be thinking about 4 o'clock, thinking, I can't get to 8 o'clock. And that's where sort of I use them. Right now, new customers can get my exclusive offer plus a free gift at huel.com/the overlap. That's my exclusive offer plus a free gift for new customers at huel.com/the overlap. Who's your hero growing up then?
I suppose in rugby it would have been people like Dean Richards, Peter Winterbottom, and Mike Teague, you know, because I ended up playing in the back row. And in football, you know, I loved Alan Shearer, loved loads of footballers really, to be honest.
You're a big Chelsea fan, aren't you?
I am a big Chelsea fan, yeah. I mean, what age do you decide what team you're going to support? Probably around about 7 or 8, didn't you? So I really should support West Ham, to be honest, because I grew up in East End of London. My mum and dad had a sweet shop. And then at the age of 7 or 8, we moved to West London. My mum said, pack your bags, we're leaving. We're going from Bethnal Green to Barnes. I think, oh, that's an upgrade. And we had so my dad was Italian, big Juventus fan, and he worked in a hotel, and they said, come on, Vincenzo, we're all going down to watch football. And they could have gone to Millwall, I suppose. They could have gone to Charlton, but being Italian, they took him down the King's Road. So you either go with your mum and dad or against them and choose a different team. So I chose Chelsea. I mean, we were awful. Couldn't win a raffle. I mean, literally, Mickey Droy, Peter Bonetti, Clive Walker. I think they got relegated a few times, and I mean, the most action you saw was the fighting in the stands. Really, it was awful. Yeah. I said to my son, who's 23, Enzo now, he loves football. He gets really upset when Chelsea lose. And we went a couple of seasons ago. We were losing quite regularly at home. We lost to Brighton 1-0. And as a father, you know, what do I say to him? And I said, listen, no matter how bad you feel, there's always someone worse off than you in life. So as we leave the stadium, comes up, I think Bournemouth had scored a 95th minute winner against Tottenham. I said, there you go, you could have been a Tottenham fan. I said to him, I said, you know, in your life, Enzo, because you're 22, I said, Chelsea have had 25 different managers in 22 years. But we've won 22 trophies, including 2 European Cups. I said, when I was your age, success for me here was getting out of the stadium alive. I said, so it's incredible. And, you know, I've had some amazing experiences watching football.
Did you ever play? Did you ever play football?
I did. I didn't play rugby till quite late. I thought I was quite good at football, and then you play against someone like you guys, and then you realise you're actually not very good, are you?
What position did you play?
I played up front, actually. Everyone looks at me and says, you've got to be a centre-half. Yeah. But, you know, one of my greatest football experiences, I used to sit next to Frank Lampard's mum and dad. Obviously not in the cheap seats, but I tell you, Frank Senior he was a tough father to, you know, every person, whenever Frank scored, and he scored a lot of goals, you know, everyone would be on their feet. Dad would be like, just didn't smile or anything. But you two actually played in a game. A week after we won the World Cup final in Sydney, we flew back, and Chelsea got in touch and they said, we'd like you to walk out and parade the trophy, which was, I mean, that's like a dream come true. Yeah. I was still drunk and buzzing, really. It was the 30th of November, Chelsea Man United at Stamford Bridge. And you were both in the team. I mean, you weren't playing at that point. And myself and Clive Woodward walked out in front of Alex Ferguson, Claudio Ranieri. And the noise, I mean, Chelsea's never normally the most atmospheric, but, you know, just 10 days after England had won the World Cup. Yeah. And I walked around the pitch, I just thought, I understand what it must be like now to be, you know, a football player and score a goal in that atmosphere. Yeah. Anyway, the only player that broke off the Man United warm-up was Rio Ferdinand, came and shook my hand and said, well done, mate.
Why would he do that?
Well, I'm surprised I can't believe you let him do that.
Well, you should be
shaking hands with that bloke. Leave him alone. Who is he?
Focus on the game.
He's just won the World Cup.
And anyway, we actually, I mean, it was a fairly even game. I think Frank Lampard scored a penalty. We won 1-0. And
it wasn't a penalty then.
It was, yeah. it was a rugby penalty, and you got yellow carded actually in the 80s.
It's the yellow,
yeah.
Don't worry about the yellow.
Standard.
It's the red.
But do you know what? It's an amazing experience, and yeah.
You used to remember every game, but as soon as he said you got beat, you both went, can't remember that.
I've been to
He's wrong.
I've been to enough Chelsea games, you know. Moscow, been to enough games where we've been on the other side of it as well. So,
of course, yeah.
It's, there's only ever two emotions. We don't do that draw.
They were the toughest team I played in, Chelsea under Mourinho.
Yeah, horrible.
For
What, the first or the second one?
First few years.
Yeah,
First couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, listen, every side, you've all been involved in these sides that go through little dynasties, and and if you keep a group of players together for long enough, and you have trust and consistency, and you bring in occasionally a little bit of additional, you're going to end up winning, aren't you? Because if you're not good enough, you get shown the door. The alchemy. I mean, I've heard you talk about Alex Ferguson in a certain way. Obviously, the coaches are hugely important, but it's the magic really happens when you have a certain group of players, and they're able to challenge the coach, but the coach is able to challenge them as well individually in certain ways. And
that's where now I think if you look at like Pep and Arteta, the way they're on the touchline constantly going on with the players, like that would have.
Yeah. That
would have distracted me.
Would you have listened?
No.
Would you have listened?
So, but then for me,
I can't understand how you can hear it, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
for me, I'm thinking, well, if they
it?
have to do that for 90 minutes of a game, then the players haven't took in what they've done.
Yeah.
But I think
if the players a chance to go and actually do what
sport
you've
is
done.
football and rugby is so emotional. No, I can't be in this. I mean, I was very simple. It's about winning, okay? And if you're not winning at least 75% of the time, then we're all in the wrong job. Go and find a job you're good at. Because you know what it's like when you go home and you lose. It's horrific. And I think serial winners detest losing, and that was definitely me. And I know it was everyone around this table. And I used to say to guys, look, it has to matter. You can't just lose a game. In saying that, I went home after we won, and my wife and I said, "Did you win?" I said, "Yeah." You don't look like you won. Stitches in my. Did you score a try? I was like, no, once every 4 games. That's the back row. But winning is what it's all about. And I think, and listening to the training, if some players aren't training well, then it doesn't need the manager or the coach to tell them. It's the other players in training. Once you cross that white line and you're training, the standards have to be high. And I think you have to push each other, don't you, really?
Yeah, if you're in a good group, you can't slacken off.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes if you've got a generation of players, in football you can only pick 11, in rugby you can only pick 15. You can have to leave some really good players out of the team, but that's okay.
There's a captain involved in
that. Just creates the raises the lowest bar. And if you've got in England at football all struggle. They're trying to look at their best players and find a way to get them all in the same team. You're not going to do that. Because you actually need, for those to really do well, you need to bring some glue around them. So leave a few on the bench, and then the opposition are going, you can't even get in the team. So
has the captain got something to? Are you involved in the selection?
No, you're not involved in selection. But I think what you have to have as a captain is you have to be comfortable that you're happy with everyone in the team. So if you're not, you've got to have the confidence to be able to knock on the coach's door and say, "Have you been on the drink again last night?" You seem to have picked him. Are you sure about that?
It's different in rugby though. For a captain would have more influence in rugby than they would in football. Well, I mean, Roy's the most influential captain that I've ever played with, but he would never go into the coach's dressing room. He would never discuss tactics that often with the manager. He would never go and do. I know he wouldn't get involved in team selection. Neither would I when I was captain. But I think with a rugby captain, there is more. I remember with.
There's a bit more maturity to rugby.
A little bit, maybe.
Yeah, trust I must say intelligence a little bit as well of a leadership group. That I remember when Clive Woodward come and spoke to us with England in sort of after you won the World Cup, and there was no leadership groups in the England football team, but there were in the England sort of rugby team. You all had this sort of quite big responsibility. I felt that's how it was. That's how he sort of described it to us.
Well, I think you're right. Listen, when you play for your club and you drive the standards, and you all played at great clubs, and you will achieve great things. When you then go with England, what you can't have is a drop down in standards. When you play for your country, whether it's Ireland, England, you made this point with Ireland. You need to feel like you're going up another level, not down another level. So, and I think that is really, really key to it. And the players are the ones that drive the standards up. I mean, I really believe that. But we had a very good relationship between the coaches and the players.
Yeah. What was Woodward's great strength?
We would never have won the World Cup without him. He was one of those rare.
You've no doubt about that.
No doubt, because England were very good at winning the 5 Nations, 6 Nations. All right? But Clive said, "Look, what do we want to achieve here? We want to win the World Cup. We want to become the best team in the world." Well, if you look at the World Cup trophy, Scotland aren't on there, Wales aren't on there, France are not on there, Ireland, neither are England. I said,
Amazing, isn't it?
It's New Zealand, South Africa and Australia, right? They've won all the World Cups. So actually, it's great winning this 5 nations, but, what we really need to focus ourselves on is becoming the best team in the world. And that was in 97 when he took over, and it didn't happen overnight. We were ranked about 4th or 5th, but he was what I call, he's one of those rare players. He played at the highest level, but he played for Leicester, England, British Lions, but he didn't play in good teams. So I think he still had something that he wanted to achieve in his life. Yeah. Often the best players in the world don't succeed in management necessarily because they can't understand why people don't, can't have the same standards that they live by or the same work ethics. So he was a disruptor. He came in, and the first thing he did is he said to the guy at the RFU, he said, where do New Zealand train when they come to England? And the chap went, well, I don't really understand why that matters. He said, well, it does, because they're the best team in the world. So he said, well, they stay in this place called the Penny Hill Park Hotel. He said, not anymore, they don't. He said, kick them out. So the first thing he did was kick the All Blacks out of their hotel base. I thought, wow. I can work with this guy, I quite like him. And
was that psychological?
Well, listen, of course, he was just having a little bit of fun with them. But, he took his coaches over to America, and they went to, in the off-season to work with the Denver Broncos, and he came back and he said, do you know what, I think we need a defence coach, I think we need a kicking coach, we need to break down all these skills. Yeah. He also came back and said, I'm underpaid as a coach. Smart.
We need a finance guy.
When he retired from rugby, he went into work in IT for a company called Xerox, and he came back and he said to me, I'm going to give all the players a laptop. I said, well, why would you do that? I said, we're rugby players. I said, it's not really the sort of weapon of choice when you go on the rugby field. And he said, well, because the team with the best IT is the team that's going to win. And I sort of thought about that. I was thinking, that's a bit strange. And then 2 years later, you look up at all the coaches and they've all got laptops. And, So when he presented us all with a laptop, I mean, the props, the front row were baffled. I mean, it took him about 2 hours to work out how to turn them on. But he was right. He used to send our clips to us. You'd play a game on a Saturday and you'd have the clips and your game had been broken down. So I think he disrupted completely. He said to Nike, I said, look, I need you to design me a kit that's going to win us the World Cup. And they said, we've just written a cheque for 95 million for our sponsorship. He said, no. I've got this guy, Jason Robinson, he plays on the wing, and he said every time, he breaks through, he gets caught. So they went off and they came back with these skin tight. England were the first team to wear those kits. I mean,
but not every player would have been happy with that, would it?
Oh no.
Jason
would have needed
Jason, then it took 3 people to get it off at half time. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Jason's still ripped now, isn't he? I see things on Instagram. He's got.
He was a gamble. Jason. He was one of the best rugby league players ever. But he was a gamble because Clive went to the CFO and he said, I need £1.5 million. They went, well, what for? He said, I want to sign Jason Robinson. He said, can he play rugby union? He said, well, I don't really know. It's a bit of a gamble, but it was a gamble that worked, because he was an X-factor game changer. I mean, it was very funny. He was born again Christian, so he arrived with 6 kids in the hotel and his wife and everything, and that's kind of a bit strange. But he had a number plate which Range Rover said blessed. Right, and as he came down the drive, I thought, I'm not sure who's more blessed, us or him. He was a hell of a player.
This episode of Stick to Football is brought to you by Sky Bet.
I promise you, a day before my 5 Nations debut, I'm standing there with 10 empty bottles of red wine, and he went, this doesn't look very good, does it?
You had to bring headgear and a root vegetable.
If you are not at 99% full chat as you run anywhere near him, you're going backwards and getting smoked.
I think he's one of the best players in the world, if I'm honest.
The Ireland bench came on and won them a game, and that's the difference.
Start losing games at Twickenham, it starts to become terminal.
Dan Sheehan, say no more, off the bench, he's the king, starts for the Lions, full stop.
He was the biggest loss to Welsh rugby.
I think they're going to win a Grand Slam.
Ooh, do you? Stick to Rugby is brought to you by Defender.
This episode of Stick to Football is brought to you by Sky Bet.
You must know going into certain matches, going back, my sort of amateur is that it is going to kick off. There must be games you go, this is definitely going to
Well, it's funny, when I listen to you guys in football, it's you're very insightful, etc. But are you comparing apples with apples? The game that we played, in rugby, violent acts of thuggery were applauded. It's.
You should have.
I think I'd have been sent off if I played the modern game of rugby now. I'd be sent off every week. You know, because you have to adapt and change. I probably would have adapted. Of course, you would have adapted and changed. But what was, it'd be difficult. When you watch the game of football, you know, when you guys played, that's a decent challenge. What's wrong with that? Now, it's very different. So when you're commentating, you've got to remember that it was just a completely different game. Yeah. I mean, it was...
I got a letter from a rugby fan. I've been sent off at United and I got a letter. I think the guy was living in Leicester and he was slagging me off, saying, you're a disgrace, you're a tug, you're blah. He said, you should be like the rugby players, right? He said that to me. He says, he mentioned Martin Johnson. So, but the guy left his number. Yeah. So, and a week earlier, Martin Johnson had been sent off for breaking somebody's ribs. Yeah, so I rang this guy and went, you're sending me letters, comparing me to rugby. I said, Martin Johnson was sent off for breaking somebody's ribs. I'm sorry about that. Slagging me off for being a tug. Martin Johnson, and he was saying, you should be more like him.
I'll tell you what, you'd have gone very well in the rugby team. You'd have been fine, mate. You know, I mean, it's a chance to vent some of that anger out.
I remember a few times we went out in Manchester with the group of the players. Yeah. We've walked in, I think it was Panacea. I think we've walked in, we've seen, I can't remember what team it was, big rugby team there. We've looked, just turned around.
It's not for us tonight. But do rugby players look down a little bit? Not down.
No, not so.
Well, soccer players get slagged up, but you look at some lads rolling around. Listen, I do now. We all do. You go, there's nothing wrong with you. Do rugby lads... Because there's a bit of respect in rugby in there. Like, you don't try and get somebody in trouble, really.
You do whatever you do to win a game, that's it. And it's not, cheating. Sportsmanship's taken very seriously in rugby. It's a badge of honour to... If someone puts in a big challenge, I want to get up off it.
That's what I mean.
That was well done. Was that your best shot? Have another go. And
definitely
does that crap into rugby a little bit?
Yeah, it is, and it's bound to. I mean, unfortunately, but we when I was at Wasps, we had shared training ground with QPR, and I think Ian Holloway was the manager of QPR, and we were training together, and of course it was a wet, miserable day, and half the QPR players are in the physio room like that. Simon Shaw comes in, training accident, he's got half his eye hanging out, and teeth out his face, gets stitched up by the physio, and he's back out training again in 5 minutes.
Crazy.
And yeah, I don't know. I just think it's different. You guys are tough. It's not.
Does it crept into rugby a little bit? I've seen some. There's been a couple of instances in rugby.
Simulation.
A little bit. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Cheating. Yeah.
It has. Yeah, it is. And
what was that blood show? Who done that with all the fake blood?
Yeah, that's.
I remember that.
I mean,
which club was that? Sorry.
That was Harlequins. I was with. But we'll push and bend the rules as far as we can. I mean, I was with Jason Leonard last night, and he reminded me of a story. We played out in South Africa, and they had a fly half that was similar to Johnny Wilkinson. He was a real superstar. We're thinking, well, if we'd done our job, we could do with him being dismissed from the field quite early on, really. And not that you target players specifically, but yes,
you did.
We did. Anyway, he was kicking lots of penalty goals, and we was really struggling. We were losing by about 9 or 10 points. And just before half time, there was a ruck, and the fly half had fallen on the other side of the ruck. So there's a moment. I'm just about to pick the ball up. Jason comes running in, and literally, I think it was a 2-footed knee drop to the kidneys, is the way I'd describe it, and just slides in and literally kills it. Finished him. And he used to be able to do that in those days. And the referee, said to me, Jason, that saw that was disgraceful, and he gave him a yellow card. I mean, you get a life sentence for that. And anyway, we're losing at half time, and Jason's already been in the sin bin for 5 minutes, so we've got another 5 minutes. Clive Woodward, who's normally very calm, he's going apoplectic. He's going, just pointing at each individual player, full hairdryer treatment. And he said, and Jason, my most experienced player, my most capped player, has just lost us this game. And he's really, had a right go at him with the biggest act of thuggery I've ever seen. And of course, when Clive eventually calmed down, Jason went, he said, I haven't lost us the game. He said, I've just won us the game. He goes, 20 quid, that bloke doesn't come out for the second half.
Did he?
And as we ran out, they said, replacing Brad. He said, I haven't lost us the game. He said, I've won us the game. Yeah. So, it's just a different game these days.
Who's the nastiest country out there, do you think? Is there I always thought New Zealand were brilliant at everything, and they know how to...
Well, listen, you've got to remember that the national sport over here is football. We're obsessed with it, and rightly so. In New Zealand and South Africa, it's rugby. No one, don't play.
Who would be nastier between them two, do you think?
Well, the South Africans are they're the biggest, they're the hardest people you've ever seen in your life. I mean, when I turned up on an airplane, I was 20 years old, I just flew to South Africa to play on tour with England. I got off the airplane, I went, I need to eat more. I've never seen people so big. I mean, they're Dutch Africans, and I mean, obviously, because of apartheid, no one went to South Africa. And then, obviously, when that changed, if you'd have said to me, in 30 years' time, there'll be a man of colour, captaining South Africa in Sia Khaleesi, I would have said absolutely no way. But what they've got now is they've got the physical attributes of what South Africans are. And then when you hear him speak, he's so powerful in terms of because of his journey through South Africa, through the slums and whatever. When I used to say I'm representing my country, I'd be speaking to. There's 75 million people in England, but only about 3 million watch rugby. So when I'm representing my country, I'm representing those. Maybe it goes up to about 8 or 9 in a big game. But if you're South African and you're representing your country, the whole country's watching. Yeah. And that's a big pressure. So if I'm saying to you, Roy, we represent South Africa today. When we lose, go and explain to the nation why we lost.
Yes.
But they're a brilliant team, now, aren't they? Do you think they're that good? Yeah, up there with the best.
Yeah, and they've back-to-back, world champions. But also they're very, they won each game by a point, didn't they? The quarter-final, semi-final, and final. So.
Do you like your coach?
The coach Russell.
Like the coach?
Yeah, he's a bit naughty.
A bit of a boy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a bit naughty.
He was at Munster years ago, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a. But again, no one challenges him. So
he pushes boundaries, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he unfollows everyone and just on his X account, and then only followed the All Blacks or something. I mean, he's naughty. He's quite provocative, but he's also quite clever. He's coming up with different things, but he's also brutal as a coach. I think Fly Half missed a kick in the World Cup. He went off you come after 5 minutes, and he brought on a player, Henry Pollard, who ended up staying in the team for the rest of the tournament. So. You've got to make the big calls.
What was it actually like that day in 2003? Because do you all remember where you were? I feel like it was such an iconic day. Yeah. I think I'd just finished school.
I missed that game,
it was like really early in the morning, wasn't it? It was really early in the morning?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's funny, it's interesting because I've played in the World Cup before. I've been playing for England since '95, but we were already the number 1 ranked side in the world, so we went there not believing that we could win the World Cup.
Yeah.
We'd won the Grand Slam the year before, that year. We went over to Australia and New Zealand that summer and beaten them over there. And I remember phoning my mum and dad, and I said to my mum, Mum, are you going to come out to the World Cup in Australia? She said, I was going to talk to you about that. I haven't quite got, money's a bit tight. I said, look, don't be silly. I said, you've done everything for me in my life. I said, let me organise it for you. I said, I can't really tell everyone we're going to win, but I think we're going to win. And I phoned Mike Burton, the guy who organised the travel, and I said to him, can you just sort out Mum and Dad, but keep it sensible, 9 weeks in Australia. I didn't hear from my mum for the first 3 weeks of the World Cup. I think it's very unusual. She normally phones me every other day. I said, are you all right, Mum? She goes, first-class Japanese Airlines.
Said, you better win the World Cup.
She said, we're in the penthouse suite, every hotel we go to. I said, Mike, keep it sensible. He said, your mum should be running this tour. He said, anything to get rid of her. But we'd been unbeaten for about 3 years, and we went into the World Cup and we expected to win. And in actual fact, we didn't play that great because when you go into a tournament as the favourites, everyone raises their game and it's the pressure and everything. And I think when we got to the semi-final, we kind of calmed down a little bit. We thought, this is our natural habitat now. We played the French and we really played well. And then to meet the hosts in their own country in a World Cup final. I mean, England have only ever been involved in only won 3 World Cups. One in football, 66, went to extra time. One in rugby, 2003, goes to extra time, and then the cricket one in 2019. So we obviously love a bit of drama, don't we? We can't, but it shows some, to get the job done, it's quite difficult.
How long were you there for? Did you say 9? You didn't say 9 weeks, did you?
Yeah, we were 9 weeks. Yeah.
That's a long time because usually a tournament.
I know the Robs, you need extra time recovery, of course. I get that.
So we had a few pool games and then quarterfinals against Wales, semi-final France. So. In that World Cup final, it was my 65th game, so it's not your first day out, is it? But you still, and the kick-off's 9 o'clock at night, and it was roasting hot in Sydney, and you got millions of fans outside. You can't go anywhere. You're stuck in the hotel, so you're thinking, right, what do I do? Watch a film, pack, unpack, because if we win, probably likely I won't be back for a few days.
For 9 weeks.
and if we lose, I just want to grab my bag and exile myself to another country. And then eventually you got an hour and a half drive to Homebush Park, the Olympic Stadium. So, you don't want to get yourself too wound up. Of course. And then, but the big games, everything takes care of itself. You just walk in, you walk on the bus and you're thinking, he's ready, he's tooled up, ready. Everyone has their own routine, and all your mates, you've been together a long time. When they're in, they've got their A game with them. And we'd beaten Australia 7 times previously in the last 3 years, so we knew we were a better side than them. You know, they knew we were a better side than them, but, you know, no one told the referee, did they? But they produced their best ever performance against us in that game. So to overcome the host nation, it was tough.
And were you loving all the financial rewards? Was there like great... Listen, I'm not saying that.
No, listen.
People,
let me be very clear. I never played rugby for money, okay, because the game was amateur. I lost my sister when I was 16 in a riverboat accident. She was sat around the table with me and my mum, and she went off to the Marchioness riverboat party, never came back. My life went off the rails for a couple of years, and I knew I needed to do something to get myself on track. My mum and dad were in a real difficult space, and I thought, I'm going to join a rugby club because I played rugby at school and I really enjoyed it. And I opened the newspaper and I thought, all right, I'm going to go to Wasps because they were top of the table then. I had no idea where they were. Luckily, it was in London. And I turned up there and I just wanted a family, a sense of belonging, a purpose, someone to put their arms around me. And when I walked into a rubby club, that's exactly what I got. No one asked any questions. I was 18 and it just felt right. You know, it was because rugby's, it's about celebrating difference. You know, no one questioned anything. And slowly but surely, my mum started to come and watch me play, and there was a bit of a smile on her face, and my dad. Right. And so my why rugby was that I wanted to honour the memory of my sister, and that becomes a much more powerful kind of purpose. Yeah. And then the game goes professional, and we start getting paid a few quid, and you know it's a bit like it was when the game went pro. It was a couple of £100. Then it started to get a bit more, and I don't know. I was the highest paid player in the country at one point, but it was probably what a footballer now gets a week, so for a year's salary. But I didn't think about the money in any way.
What was the money that the top player would have been on when you won the World Cup? Would that have been Johnny Wilkinson? Would he been on?
No, we were all roughly on the same. I mean, I don't know really, but the discrepancy in salaries. I mean, I was the highest paid player, and I earned about £300,000 a year.
Yeah. Around that time.
Around that time, and then we all got about £75,000 bonus for winning the World Cup. But you know. Never did I ever think about the money in any way, shape or form.
Are the pitfalls just as bad for rugby as footballers when they retire? And
yeah, of course.
Compared to cricketers, sometimes the pitfalls...
Well, I think it's the same in anything. It depends how much you invest in it. I mean, I could never go into coaching because I felt so drained when I finished my rugby career. I was so over-invested, maybe too over-invested, you know what I mean? And so I decided to take the easy route and do a bit of telly.
But we go back to rugby. Like.
Everyone looked at you.
They're all on the telly, by the way.
We think footballers are more working class. You always think the rugby lads would be a bit more sensible.
I really I just thought to myself, when I looked after myself, I was good with that, you know, mentally. If I'm putting my career and my responsibility in the hands of other people, and these now are very different mindsets to the way we had it, I can't cope with that.
This episode of Stick to Football is brought to you by Sky Bet. Who's the biggest voice in that dressing room? Who's the most influential person in that dressing room? Did you?
I think it's a mix, really. I mean, you've got people who are much more vocal before the game, and you've got those that, you know, like a serial killer in the corner. Beautiful, that's fine, that's what you do. But most important thing is we're all there to help each other to fulfil our potential, right? So, you know, as coaches, players, what you want is you want to show the world the best of yourself in that 80 minutes, don't you? And it's your job to help each other to get that out. And I think superstars, like all of you were, normally will give you 8 or 9 out of 10 the majority of the time. I think the real challenge as a coach is to lift the lowest common denominator and get guys who are sort of ordinarily 6 or 7 to deliver outstanding performances. Now, as a captain, I was always known to be quite emotional. What am I going to tell you 5 or 10 minutes before kick-off that's going to make you a better player? I mean, you're already superstar players, so I'm not suddenly going to inject it, whatever. But what you can do is you can connect the heart and the head and make sure that emotionally and mentally you're in the right state of mind, so that it doesn't matter who's in the change room next door. They've got no chance of winning because we're going to win.
But if you have a brilliant team but you haven't got a kicker, you've got no chance.
Well, you just got to get the job done without kicking, haven't you? Really, score a few more tries. But I mean, if you haven't got a good,
at the highest level, if you haven't got a good kicker,
I mean, these guys practice. I mean, the percentage levels are uncontrolled. You know, but look, you know, a bit like goalkeepers and centre forwards, you know, they can win and lose you the game, can't they? Yeah.
And the kickers that
happens. I might miss 3 or 4 tackles in a game, but none of them have resulted in us losing the game. Whereas a winger might miss a tackle in the last minute, and it's whatever. But when you win, you know, in the days when there was no camera phones, you said, look, it's very simple. If we win, we're going to go out and enjoy ourselves, and we can pretty much do what we want, and no one's going to say a word, really. If we lose, we're not going out. We're going to go upstairs, we're going to have a few quiet beers, we're going to discuss why we lost and who was responsible. And I think that philosophy generally takes you, it takes you a long way, doesn't it? Really?
Can I ask you one thing about the safety side of the game? Sorry, it might be a boring question. You know what South Africa do? Do you think that is dangerous when lads are coming on with 20 minutes to go?
Well, I think you got.
Or has that always been? Obviously, there's danger in every game.
Well, no, it's not as dangerous. It's.
But if you're fatigued,
there's a lack of space in it. I mean, when we used to, the game's changed. When I played for 80 minutes, and I knew I'd very unlikely to be substituted. So, you can't be the size that because you had to run for 80 minutes. Right. Now, there's some of these guys are only running for 30, 40, 50 minutes, so they can be another 2 stone heavier. And when you're coming on, when you see these guys come on, there's no space on the field. So you're thinking, is that right? Maybe they should, they should change things. Right. But yeah,
it is dangerous.
There is dangerous, but the optics of how we talk about rugby need to change, in my opinion. Formula One's a tough sport. There's risks. Being a jockey, you talk to AP McCoy. There's some serious risks being a jockey. MMA is basically 2 thugs that go in a ring, beat the living crap out of each other, and the clips go viral, don't they? And we celebrate them. Whereas rugby has got this obsession with, showing head-on-head collisions in slow motion, live on television, live at the stadium, and mums and dads at home are going, do you know what? I don't think you should play rugby anymore. Yeah. Now,
are the numbers dropping off?
Oh yeah, of course they are. Now. We all fly airplanes, but I reckon if I showed you, planes crashing at Heathrow Airport in slow motion, after a few years, you might go, don't fancy that. Fine. I think we need to understand that the risks are there, but you know what you're signing up for. Yeah. There are risks involved, and concussion and the recovery and the science around injuries is changing all the time. And some of the things we did in the early days were stupid, but I think we need to turn the optics around and celebrate the sport rather than we've got an inferiority complex about what we are. It's a physical confrontation sport.
Do you know when you say about injuries, is that how's your body now after all them hits throughout your career?
Yeah,
I'm
52, so I've got surgeons on speed dial, pretty much. I've had 15 operations throughout my career, but listen, when you don't mind the smaller ones, where at the end of the season you need to get your knee cleaned out and you'll be ready for next season. But it's avoiding the bigger ones. I did my ACL in 2001, which was, for anyone who's done that, that's a long, it's a hard 8 or 9 months. But, it actually taught me a lot, because I said to the manager, I said, look, I can't come into the club every day. This is going to drive me mad. I said, everyone's going to be asking me about my knee. I said, I need some time away from the club. And so I got my own physio, got my own coach. And then let me come in after about 4 months. The first 4 months, it's just... So I think mentally you've got to get yourself right. And I think you learn so much when you get injured, because you come back a much stronger player, really. And then the ankle in New Zealand. But now, I think you got to... When you retire from playing, I must say I did put on a few pounds. I don't know if any of you found that in the first 6 months.
I did. He picks up a sweet.
And I had a little look in the mirror and I'm like, oh dear, that's not... And because, I went to LA for 6 months. I had a good time. And
but you deserve it,
and then,
though.
Exactly. And then I thought to myself, right,
anymore,
it's very simple. It's calories in, but calories out, really, isn't it? So you've got to stop eating as much as you... Because when I was playing rugby, I was huge. Because you've got to eat so much food. It was boring eating food. Yeah. And then you just got to stop. And I think that, you meet some of your old teammates now and you go, sort yourself out, mate. You let yourself go a bit there, haven't you? And I think, we're programmed to exercise. We've been doing it all our lives. So you're not suddenly going to go from that to nothing.
Yeah. I find it hard to exercise, though. I always thought, because when I played, I'd train hard every single day because I didn't want to let the team down. But now that it's kind of all on me, I do find it hard.
Do you?
Yeah, I don't really go to the gym, and I'll go out for the odd run. I know, obviously, Gary, you train a lot, don't you? But I do find it hard.
I can't run anymore. I can't. Being the size I am, cycling, I enjoy that. But I go to the gym.
Will you swim?
I just go to the gym twice a week. Really.
Yeah.
But then I still pay a trainer, because if I go in there on my own, I just get lazy and just stop, picking up the newspaper, looking around the gym and doing very little. Whereas actually, if I have a trainer in and out, pay him for an hour, and but I said to him, I don't want to get big. I just said, just keep it simple. I just want to be.
I thought motivation came from within. I thought to drive yourself on. Coach, you give him 50, 60 quid an hour.
No, but you have to be accountable, though, don't you, to someone? Do you go to the gym?
Just saying, Jill.
Do you go to the gym?
I'm not trying to win anything. I've done that, mate. What about 122 trophies? I don't need.
What about the finances in rugby in terms of the game has had financial issues, hasn't it, in the last sort of 5-10 years? Do you look at football and think, how is there such a sort of disparity?
I think the optics, again, all we talk about is concussion, head-on-head injuries and financial instability. And that is not good advert for the game. So, yes, I agree with you. I mean, I think 8 out of 10 of the professional rugby clubs in England are trading insolvent at the moment. There is no doubt, and they're only in business because of the ownership structure. Now, I don't know what that's like in football.
Similar,
pretty similar.
Yeah, similar.
I think what rugby needs to do is change that model very quickly. I mean, there could be an argument to say you're not allowed to be in business if you're insolvent, or if your wages to your players are
the ratio
of your turnover, etc. Because it's crazy. Because what we can't have is 1 point of failure. If one person, individual, gets bored of something and he walks away, then the club goes under. But I think the game is still trying to work out what it is. It's not football. It's not a huge sport. It's only played by 10 or 12 teams internationally, and therefore it needs to come together and get the calendar. I'm not sure the calendar of rugby is quite right. We're just about to start the Six Nations, so there's no club rugby now for the next 2 months. It's
cash flow for
there's a lot of work, and I think sport is much more disruptive than it's ever been. We've got, golf, which used to be a little circus for 100 players who used to earn a lot of money and everyone around them. But now, Live's come along and changed golf forever.
Cricket's
and cricket, you got Test match cricket, white ball, red ball, IPL, Big Bash, and we've all got kids. Their attention to sport is changed. They don't watch it on TV necessarily. So it's completely changed. Rugby needs to recognise that. Yes, traditional matches at Twickenham are still, but it needs to be more than just a game of rugby. Because sometimes you go and watch rugby, and I'm commentating, I'm thinking, don't adjust your TV. It really is not very good. It's a very technical game, very analytical. Do you know what I mean? So you have to make the experience around rugby better. So it's like football. You come and watch football. People arrive 4 hours before the game, and they leave. And you want them to stay as long as they can. So it's. But there's still magic about it. I mean, it's you turn on the Six Nations and England are playing Ireland and Scotland. It's
weekend, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
In Ireland or England?
In Dublin, yeah.
In Dublin,
yeah.
And that's England actually won the game last season somehow with a huge.
Not blaming referee.
Well, as you know, when you're the best team, it's always easier if you referee, isn't it? Really.
It'd be traditional. The lads still have a pint after a game, like Ireland and England Saturday evening. Would they have a few pints together? No,
not now.
Usually these have like official dinners.
They might have 1 or 2 in the change room afterwards. But then they've got a 6-day turnaround. They've got to play France. England are playing France the following Saturday.
Right.
So I don't know. I think the times we would have done without a shadow of a doubt.
And you think the current players are missing that tradition? Like I've read stories about Moss Keane going back to the
100%. But listen,
the game changed.
All you have to be in any team is the fittest person in the world in your era, really. So if everyone's doing that, it's fine. I was captain of England against Ireland early on, and we won. And when you make your first cap for your country, you have to take a drink with every single player in the team. So when I came off the bench against South Africa, by the time I got upstairs, Jason Leonard had come out, congratulations, so I had a lager, so that's done. Then someone else would come with a glass of wine, so you've had 22 drinks.
Oh my God! Could you walk?
Isn't that part of your story then?
Yeah, basically.
Like you don't want like sports people. No, we'll argue are becoming like robots. Yeah. Lads are afraid to have a few pints. Actually, a pint would help you switch up.
I don't. People can do whatever they want as long as they're ready to work when it's time to work, and they can train and deliver and win, and don't let it upset .
Yeah, but on one hand, you're talking about traditions of rugby. Going, what made you embraced you with your family stuff? You're going, was all that stuff?
Yeah,
everyone's going.
I mean,
no, you go home. You go home. You're going. Lads are on the mobiles. Whereas years ago,
I think.
I think if you're in a team game,
there has to be an element. I don't think there is that anymore.
No, I agree.
I think on the drink, if that was the drinks things, I think I would have had to have played sevens rather than.
You couldn't do the 22.
Gary would have been dumping. You'd have been tipping, mate.
The
floor would have been wet. But listen, if a player, like in a cricket team, if some of the guys are Muslim, they're teetotal, right? So they don't get involved. Yeah. I mean, Johnny Wilkinson wasn't a big drinker. That's fine. I mean, we can't all be going out celebrating, can we? Because we need someone to be in bed. And
was he that brilliant?
He's a great player. I mean, the thing about Johnny was that we didn't know about mental health. The mental health was 2 words: mental and health. I mean, if you're a coach, you wouldn't allow someone to kick for 4 hours after the end of a session. I don't know who stayed out the latest in training, but another hour, fine. But not 4 hours. Like, you need to come back and actually integrate.
Is that what he would do?
He'd be out there for, he'd be obsessed. And that's not healthy because it didn't create the right mindset for him. And he had all this pressure on him. And I just think the support team around these players now is much better because we understand about the fact that if he wants to go out and kick on Christmas Day for 5 hours.
Yeah, but the thing is that what he done and the work he put
Would we have won the World Cup without John Wilkes? I can't answer that question. But and it was great that the World Cup was actually won by a player as opposed to being lost by me giving away a penalty or something, whatever. But would we have won without Jason Robinson? I couldn't tell you that. I think what I can tell you is that we managed to get everyone fit to that World Cup final, and he missed four with his left foot, so it was
a lot of averages. He was going to get one.
And it was, exactly. But he didn't play for England for another 4.5 years after that game.
Do you think he struggled because of
I just think he had,
thrown in the limelight?
We prepared.
What, through injury?
I didn't know that.
We prepared to win the World Cup. No one prepared for life after we won it. And I was lucky. You get yourself in the shape of your life. You come back. I remember my club coach Warren Gatland phoning me out saying, well done, brilliant. He said, you're probably still pissed, though. I said, yep. He said, he said, you can have next week off. He said, you're going to parade the trophy around Chelsea, then Newcastle with Johnny Wilkinson. He said, but I need you back following week. I was back playing within 10 days of winning. We actually won the European Cup and the Premiership title for my club, so I had a fantastic year. Right. Some guys were so mentally shot from when Johnny didn't play for England. Martin Johnson retired the next day.
I don't know, it was 4.5 years?
Yeah, about 3 years, 4 years.
Why didn't he play because of injury?
Injury, kept getting injured.
Was it his shoulder that kept going out, was it?
Johnny, bless him. When we got back to the hotel, we'd landed at Heathrow Airport, thousands of people there, and we get back to the hotel, Penny Park. And he said, I'm going to go back to Heathrow Airport. I said, no, you can't go anywhere, mate. I said, he couldn't walk out. I said, let me book you an S-Class and take you up to Newcastle. He said, and he couldn't understand that. He's like, I said, your life's changed, mate. He said, you can't go anywhere.
What the injuries was his shoulder, was it?
He had shoulder, knee problems. But I used to, listen, he played in Newcastle and he liked the lifestyle up there because he was private, quiet. But I always said to him, why are you at Newcastle? It's like Steven Gerrard playing for West Ham or something. It's, you've been played every week. You need to be around players where you can be rested a bit more because, and I don't know. But he eventually moved to Toulon, and I think but this is the mindset of him. When he signed for Toulon, he studied French for about 4 months, and he turned up his first press conference with fluent French.
Oh, that's amazing.
Not as good as O'Gara's, was it?
No.
You hear Ronan's French.
That was beautiful French,
Big Clive, wasn't it? Yeah.
The Guinness advert.
Yeah.
May we.
Right, you've launched the podcast, Stick to Rugby. And you've shot the first one.
Yeah, we're very excited. It's myself. Obviously, you guys launched this however many years ago, and it's been incredibly successful. And listen, it's just a lot of people who love the sport, and same as football, just talking about the stories, getting the characters in the game. Whether you're a fan of the game, whether you're a player, coach, it's just about having a bit of fun and getting out there. So we've got myself, David Flatman, Tom Shanklin, and Katie McLean. And we've shot the first episode with Martin Johnson, the ex-England captain. So that'll be fun. And we're going to shoot them every week, a bit like you guys, chew the fat, get the stories, find out, what it's all about. And if it's half as successful as this, we'll have a good time.
I used to play football with Katie McLean. We were on the same team, and then obviously she chose rugby. But I just remember her absolutely kicking us to death in football, so rugby definitely suits her. But
I think there's so many characters in the game, and football's in our, it's in our lives. Everywhere you turn, there's football everywhere, which is great. But I think in rugby, we need to grow and get those characters out there. And I think this Stick to Rugby, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll hopefully get a few people that overlap that might, watch rugby, but come from different worlds.
How's Martin Johnson? Is he good? Is he in a good
place?
He's
great fun. He's still got that menacing look, though, isn't he?
Yes.
I'm glad he was on my team. Mate.
Yeah, he has.
But no, he's good. He's very good. He's very, very content.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and his son's playing rugby. It's quite interesting. His son Henry's just playing in the Leicester Academy now. Right. My son played rugby, but he said, Dad, I don't want to be a professional rugby player. He said, I've got ambitions slightly higher than that. And he was in the academy. He could have easily been a pro rugby player, but he went to Bristol University, got a degree. I was thinking, I'm sure I picked up the right child at hospital. And he's now working in a sports agency. And but he still plays rugby because he loves the social crack. Yeah. He just doesn't want to be a professional. Yeah. It's the same with all our kids. There's a lot of pressure on them to carry the name.
Lawrence, brilliant to have you on.
Thank you
very much for coming on Stick to Football, and good luck with the podcast.
Take it easy.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks.